My phone showed her little blue dot far south on the highway, hours away with her family, but I saw her 10 feet in front of me. She sat under a warm lamp in the back of the restaurant, smiling with Mark, her ex. Her hand rested on his wrist like it belonged there. I felt my throat close. The screen in my hand kept insisting she was not here. I stayed behind a tall plant near the bar. The leaves brushed my face when I leaned. The waiter passed so close I smelled coffee on his breath. I kept my head down and watched her through gaps in the green. She laughed once, loud and clear, and it cut through the room. I looked back at my phone. The map still showed her on a road that did not exist in this building. I opened our shared location app again. I refreshed it until my finger hurt. The dot moved a little on the highway like she was still driving. I stared at her real body across the room. Same hair, same necklace I had bought, same small scar on her chin that she hated. The lie was not only words. It lived in her phone. It moved on a fake trip while she sat here, warm and safe with him. I slid my own phone into camera mode. I held it low as if I was reading a message. The screen faced them. I started recording. My hand shook, so I braced my wrist on the bar. Their faces filled the frame. Her mouth moved, soft and happy. Mark leaned close, too close. He touched her knee under the table. She did not pull away. Their voices reached me when the music dipped. Mark spoke first, casual, like he owned the air around him. He asked if I had packed yet. She said I had not because I still thought she was out of town. She said my head was always somewhere else. Then she said my name slow, like she tasted it. Hearing it from her mouth in that tone made my skin crawl. Mark smiled and pointed his fork at her like he was giving orders. He asked if she had taken pictures. She said yes, of the place, of the closets, of the hall closet with the breaker box, and of the spare key drawer by the sink. My stomach turned. Those were details you took when you planned to return, not when you visited. She told him the landlord still liked her. She said she could talk about renewing the lease without me there. Mark laughed and said good because the apartment was better than his. He called it ours, not mine, not hers, ours. He said he wanted to move his stuff in slowly so I would not notice. He said he could start with the basement storage cage. He said my boxes would be easy to push to the back. I tightened my grip on the phone until it hurt. My recording light stayed steady. She nodded, eyes bright. She said she had already cleaned out a shelf in the bathroom cabinet. She said she hated sharing space with my things. She said she wanted my side empty. Mark asked what they would do with me. Her smile did not change when she answered. She said I would leave on my own if it looked like I chose to. She said people believed a man who left was guilty of something. She said she had been careful. She had been careful. The words felt like cold fingers on my neck. Mark said he had found a way to make it quick. He said he knew someone who could write a message from my phone. He said it would look like I ran. I swallowed hard and my mouth tasted like metal. I checked the recording. It still ran. I zoomed in as much as I could. Mark leaned back and pulled a folded paper from his jacket. He slid it across the table. She opened it like a gift. Her face changed for the first time. Not fear, not doubt, it was relief. She whispered, too quiet for the rest of the room but close enough for me. She said the lock change was scheduled for Monday. She said after that he could not get back in. Then Mark tapped the paper with one finger and said something that made my blood go thin. He said, and the trip story bought us 3 days, but we only needed one. Tonight. If he came home early, he would not leave again. I returned to our apartment while the restaurant smell still clung to my clothes. The hallway light flickered like it had a weak pulse. I shut the door without a sound and stood still, listening. The place sounded wrong, too empty, like it waited for something bad to happen. I set my phone on the kitchen counter and made myself breathe slow. My hands stopped shaking. I opened the video I had recorded and watched 10 seconds without sound. Their faces looked unreal on the screen like masks in warm light. I saved it twice, once to my phone and once to a cloud drive under my private email. I renamed the file with the date and time. I took screenshots of her face beside him and another of his hand on her knee. I opened the location app again. Her dot still moved on the highway. It moved in small jumps like a toy on a string. I took a screenshot of that too, with the time in the corner. Then I opened my phone settings and turned off all sharing. I removed her access to my location. I did it in silence like I had been trained. I sat at the table and logged into our shared email. My stomach tightened when I saw the recent activity list. There were logins from a device I did not recognize, from a place across town, not from her family house. I clicked through the inbox. A message was missing. I knew because I remembered the subject line from a delivery notice last week. It was gone now, like it had never existed. I checked the trash folder. It was empty. The deleted folder was empty too. Someone had cleaned it with care. I searched for bank alerts. Some were there, some were not. I searched for lease emails. The last message from our landlord had been opened yesterday at 2:14 p.m. I had been at work then. She had been here. I went to the living room and opened the small drawer where we kept mail. It was half full, but it felt staged. The bills that had my name were missing. The envelopes that showed account numbers were gone. In their place were old coupons and a magazine she did not read. I checked the trash bin. It smelled of fresh liner, too clean. She had taken the trash out before leaving, which she never did unless she wanted something erased. I walked to the bedroom closet and looked behind the hanging coats. The small lockbox where I kept spare documents sat in the corner. It was still there, but it sat a little farther forward than I remembered. I crouched and touched it. The metal felt cold. The key was still on my ring. I opened it and counted without blinking. Passport, birth certificate, insurance papers. Everything looked normal, but the papers did not sit the same way. Someone had lifted them and put them back in the wrong order. I moved to the desk where her tablet charged. It was our backup device, synced to her accounts because she liked the bigger screen. I woke it with one tap. A message preview sat on the lock screen. My chest tightened as I read the first line. It was from Mark. It said, "Did you get into his files yet?" I did not unlock the tablet right away. I stared at that line until the letters blurred. The room felt smaller. The air felt dry. I heard my own breathing, and beneath it I imagined their voices at the table, calm and sure, talking about my home like it already belonged to them. I typed in the passcode I thought I knew. It failed. I tried again. Failed. The third try locked the tablet for 5 minutes. She had changed it. She had done it while I still slept beside her. I went back to the kitchen and opened our shared streaming account. The password had been changed. I opened the utilities site. I could not log in. I opened our renter insurance. The email on the account had been updated to hers only. I checked my bank app. It loaded, but my linked accounts list looked different. One savings account was no longer visible. I checked the front door chain and the window locks. They were all secure, but the feeling did not leave. It felt like the apartment itself had shifted under me, like a room in my own home had been rented out to strangers. When the tablet timer ended, I tried one more time with the old code. It stayed locked. A new message preview appeared, replacing the last one. My stomach dropped when I read it. Mark had written, "Make sure you take the key and the papers tonight." If he noticed, it was too late anyway. I walked through the apartment like it belonged to someone else. Every step felt wrong, like I had entered too late. I kept the lights off and used my phone screen as a weak lamp. The corners looked thick and deep. I listened for any sound that did not match my breathing. The silence did not feel empty. It felt full. I opened my notes app and started a list. Laptop, camera, watch, passport, lockbox. I moved room to room and checked each item with my eyes and hands. I photographed drawers before I touched them. I photographed them again after I closed them. I took pictures of the couch, the walls, the windows, the floor. I did it like I expected someone to claim I broke my own home. In the bedroom, I pulled out the drawer under the bed where I kept spare cash. The envelope was there, but it looked thinner. I counted twice. The number was lower than it should have been. It was not a lot, but it was enough to tell me someone had tested what they could take without my notice. I took a picture of the envelope and wrote the amount in my notes. I checked the closet shelf where we kept small boxes from old phones. One box was missing. It held a backup SIM tool and a spare key to my work locker. I stared at the empty space until my eyes hurt. I took a photo of the shelf anyway, like the absence had a shape. I felt my skin tighten, as if someone stood behind me and leaned close. I sat at the kitchen table and opened the lease folder. The papers were in a neat stack, too neat. The pages had a new crease that I did not remember. I flipped through and found the renewal section. The landlord had left a blank line for signatures. There was a faint mark on the paper, like someone had pressed a pen there without ink. I pictured her practicing my name. I opened the utilities accounts on my laptop. The electric bill showed a recent change request pending. The contact number had been updated to hers. The water account had a note that said secondary authorized user added. It was not my name. It was not hers. It was Mark. My throat went dry. I refreshed the page 3 times, hoping it would vanish like a mistake. It stayed. I went to the hallway closet with the breaker box, the one she had told him about. The door was closed. I put my hand on the knob and held it still. I listened. I heard nothing, but the wood felt warm, like it had been touched not long ago. I opened it and checked behind the coats. There was a thin strip of dust missing on the top shelf. Something long had been placed there and then removed. I closed the door and did not breathe out until the latch clicked. I returned to the front door and checked the locks. The deadbolt was turned. The chain was set. I did it slowly, like a ritual. I pressed my ear to the door. I heard the building pipes. I heard a distant TV, nothing else. I walked away, but the feeling followed me, a pressure between my shoulder blades. A few minutes later, I went back to the kitchen for my phone charger. The apartment air felt colder, even though the heat was on. I glanced toward the entry and stopped. The front door stood slightly open. Not wide, just enough to show a thin line of hallway light. The chain hung loose. The deadbolt was not turned. My mind tried to fix it fast. I told myself I had forgotten. I told myself my hands had slipped, but I remembered the click. I remembered testing the knob. I walked to the door without making noise and looked through the gap. The hallway was empty. The light outside did not move. No footsteps. No voices. Only that narrow opening like a mouth. I closed the door and locked it again. This time I twisted the deadbolt until it resisted. I set the chain. I held the knob and pulled hard once, then twice. The door stayed shut. Still, I did not feel safe. The door had opened without sound. It had opened like someone had a key and knew exactly how to keep it quiet. I stepped back and looked at the lock, really looked at it. The metal around it had small scratches that did not match my key. They were fresh. I understood then. I had never been the only one with access. She did not need to steal my key. She already had another made. Mark had one too. I sat down and opened a locksmith site on my phone. I picked the first 24-hour number I saw. I did not call from the living room. I called from the bathroom with the fan on, like the walls could listen. When the line rang, I stared at the door handle in the mirror and waited for it to turn. I decided I would change the locks before she came back, and I would not warn her. While it rang, I heard a soft sound outside the front door. A key slid into the lock. The locksmith line connected as the key scraped inside my lock. I stayed in the bathroom with the fan roaring. I gave my address in a flat voice. I asked for a full rekey, not a copy. I asked for it tonight. The man on the phone said he could arrive in 40 minutes. I agreed, and my tongue felt too big in my mouth when I said it. I ended the call and turned off the fan. The apartment went quiet again and the silence hit hard. I stepped out and moved toward the front door with my phone held low, still recording audio. I did not switch on any lights. The key sound had stopped. The lock did not turn again. Whoever stood out there waited like they had time. I walked to the kitchen and grabbed my keys and wallet. I checked my pockets twice. I took my passport from the lockbox and slid it into my bag. I took my laptop and charger. I took the folder with my lease copy, my pay stubs, and my insurance cards. I did not touch anything that was hers. I did not break anything. I did not want a story made about me later. I opened my closet and pulled out a small suitcase. The zipper sounded too loud. I froze and listened. Nothing moved outside the door. I packed with care. 2 changes of clothes, my work ID, my backup hard drive, the envelope of cash, even though it was lighter than before. I photographed the empty drawer after I took it so it would be clear what had been there and what had not. I walked through the living room and filmed the condition of the place in one slow sweep. Walls, couch, TV stand, windows, floor. Then I filmed the kitchen. Countertops, cabinets, sink. I filmed the front door lock up close. I made sure the time stamp showed on my screen. My breathing stayed steady, but my heart kept punching at my ribs. I checked my email again and changed my password from my laptop. I turned on 2-factor security. I removed her devices from the trusted list. I did the same for my bank and my phone account. Each confirmation message felt like a small door closing. I knew it would not stop her from trying, but it would make her actions visible. I went to the drawer by the sink, the one she had mentioned at the restaurant. It was the junk drawer. Batteries, tape, old keys. I pulled it out slowly. The bottom did not look right. I ran my fingers along the underside and felt a hard bump near the back corner. I took a butter knife and slid it under the edge of a strip of tape. The tape lifted with a wet sound. Fresh glue clung to it and stretched in thin strings. My stomach turned. Under the tape sat a small silver key. I held it between my fingers and stared. It matched the style of our apartment key. Same grooves, same worn edge, but it looked newer than mine. I brought it close to my nose. It smelled like metal and something sharp, like a new tool. The glue on the tape still felt tacky. I checked the drawer again. There was a faint smear where the glue had been pressed. Someone had placed that key there recently. Someone had wanted quick access. Someone had wanted me to never look under the drawer because it was such a stupid place to hide something. The kind of place you hid something when you felt safe. I set the key on a paper towel and took photos from different angles. I filmed myself picking it up and placing it back down so it was clear I had found it, not made it. My hands shook again. The betrayal stopped being a message on a screen. It became a real object in my palm. It had weight. It had cold teeth. I heard a soft scrape at the front door, like metal against metal. I moved fast but quiet and stood to the side of the entry wall where I could not be seen through the peephole. I held my phone in both hands and kept recording. My mouth went dry and I swallowed without sound. The lock clicked once, as if someone tested it. Then the door handle moved from the hall, slow and careful, like the person on the other side already expected it to open. The door handle kept moving in slow pulls, as if the hand on the other side tried to feel the exact point where the latch gave way. I stayed pressed to the wall, close enough to hear faint breath through the crack. The lock held. The chain held. Then my phone vibrated in my hand, sharp and sudden, and the name on the screen made my stomach twist. It was her. I did not move to the peephole. I did not speak right away. The handle stopped the moment the call came in, like whoever stood outside listened for the same sound. I raised my phone and turned on call recording. My thumb felt numb. I answered in a low voice, careful and flat, like nothing had happened. She spoke with soft warmth, the voice she used when she wanted something from me. She asked if I was okay. She said she had been worried because service had been bad on the road. She said she and her mom had stopped at a small hotel for the night. She described it fast, as if she had rehearsed the details. She said the bed was hard. She said the shower smelled like bleach. She said her aunt had snored loud. I watched the front door while she talked. The chain hung still. The handle did not move again, but I felt a presence on the other side, patient and close. I kept my breathing steady so she could not hear it change. I told her I was fine. I asked what town she was in. I asked what the hotel was called. I asked it like I cared. She answered too quickly. She said a name that did not sound real. She said it was off the highway, near a gas station with bright lights. She said she had eaten a sandwich from the lobby vending machine. She laughed a little, like it was a funny, tired moment. Her calm made my skin crawl because I had seen her across the restaurant less than an hour earlier, clean and glowing. I made small sounds to keep her talking. I asked about her mother. I asked about her cousins. She filled the air with names and places, and the words stacked up like a wall. I listened for gaps. I listened for the way her voice lifted when she lied. It did not lift. It stayed smooth. It stayed sure. A faint noise came through the call, not from her voice but behind it. A clink like glass. Then a low laugh close to the phone. It was a man. It was not far away on a speaker. It sounded like it came from the same room as her, right next to her shoulder. She paused for half a second, then kept speaking without a break. She said her uncle had told a joke. She said everyone had laughed. But the laugh I had heard did not sound like a family room. It sounded like Mark, careless and confident, the way he had laughed when he called my apartment hours. My hand tightened around the phone. I stared at the lock, at the small scratches near the keyhole, and I pictured his key sliding in again while she talked to me. I wondered if the person outside was him, waiting for me to open the door by mistake. The thought made my mouth go dry. I asked her when she planned to come home. She said Sunday, maybe Monday. She said it depended on her mom. She said she missed me. She said it in a slow way, like she tested the line and listened for my reaction. I gave her nothing. I asked if she had taken any pictures on the trip. She said her phone had been acting strange. She said the signal kept dropping. I stared at the shared location app on my screen. Her dot still drifted down the highway, steady and clean. Her voice stayed close in my ear. The dot and her voice did not match the world around me. I felt like I was listening to a recording someone played to keep me calm while a door opened. She lowered her voice, like she wanted to sound honest. She said she had a small problem. She said her card had been declined at the hotel. She said it was probably the bank flagging a charge because she was traveling. She said it was embarrassing in front of her mom. She said she did not want to bother me, but she did not know what else to do. I did not speak. I watched the door. The handle stayed still, but I heard a tiny scrape near the lock, like a fingernail against metal. She made a small sad sound. She asked if I could do her a favor. She asked if I could read out my card number, the expiration date, and the security code, so she could put it on file for the room. Then she added, casual and sweet, that I could also leave the card on the kitchen counter when I went to bed, just in case she needed it again. I told her I could not help with my card. I said the bank had locked my account for fraud checks. I kept my voice calm. I kept it boring. She went quiet for a moment, then she said she understood too quickly. She said she would figure it out. Behind her, the man laughed again, low and close. Then she ended the call without saying I love you. I stood in the dark entryway and watched the door. The handle did not move. The hallway stayed silent. I waited for a full minute, then another. I did not hear footsteps leave. I only felt that someone had been there, listening, and had stepped away without sound. I moved to my laptop and opened every account I could think of. I did not let my hands shake. I treated it like an accident scene. I took screenshots of balances and recent activity. I downloaded statements. I saved them with dates and the file names. I turned on alerts for every transaction, even small ones. Each setting I changed felt like I tightened a strap around something that had been slipping away. We had one shared card for groceries and bills. I froze it. I did not cancel it yet. I wanted a clean record, not a fight she could twist into a story. I called the issuer and told them the card had been exposed. I asked for the account to be locked until I confirmed in person. The agent asked if I wanted to notify the second user. I said no. My voice stayed steady as if I spoke about weather. Then I opened my personal bank and separated what I could. I moved my savings into a new account under only my name. I removed her as an authorized user where the site allowed it. Where it did not, I marked the account for closure. I set a new password and security questions that had nothing to do with our life together. I wrote the changes down on paper and locked it in my lockbox. I did not trust any device she had touched. My direct deposit still went into the old account. I logged into my payroll system and rerouted it to the new one. The confirmation page took a few seconds to load, and those seconds felt like someone stood behind me reading over my shoulder. When it finally showed approved, I exhaled once, slow. I checked my credit report. A soft sickness moved through me as I saw two recent inquiries I did not recognize. Not approved accounts, but someone had tried. Someone had typed my information into forms and waited to see what opened. I saved the report and placed a fraud alert. The site asked for a phone number. I used a new one, not the shared plan. I opened our lease email thread and read it line by line. The landlord had always been friendly. Friendly meant careless. I found his number and stepped into the bathroom again, as if the walls in the living room could repeat my words. I called and asked direct questions. I asked if either tenant could remove the other. I asked what the process was. I asked if any lock change had been scheduled. He sounded surprised. He said no lock change had been scheduled by him. He said only the owner could approve it. Then he hesitated, and that pause felt like a hand closing around my throat. He said my girlfriend had called 2 weeks earlier. He said she had asked what it would to take over the lease by herself. He said she had claimed I planned to move out soon. He said she had asked if she could submit paperwork without me present. I thanked him. My mouth felt stiff. I asked him to note that I did not consent to any changes without my written approval. I asked him to put it in the file. He agreed, still confused, and told me he would email confirmation. When I ended the call, I opened my calendar and chose a moving date. I set it for the morning she claimed she would return. I did not want her to walk into an empty apartment at midnight when no one could witness it. I wanted daylight. I wanted cameras. I wanted receipts. I wanted a clean line between what was mine and what she tried to claim. I went back into the shared email and searched for the landlord name again. This time I checked drafts. My heart slowed like it prepared itself. One draft sat there, unsent, saved yesterday. It was a message to the landlord asking to remove me from the lease. She wrote it like a simple update. She wrote that I had already left. She wrote that she would handle everything going forward. Then I saw my name in her sentence, spelled wrong, like she had practiced erasing me so many times that the letters stopped mattering. I packed the last boxes like I worked in a place that had to be cleared after a death. I did not rush. I did not stop. I wrapped my own dishes and left hers untouched. I wiped every surface I used. I cleaned fingerprints from the fridge handle. I wanted the apartment to look calm, like nothing bad had happened here, even though my body knew it had. I carried my personal photos to the suitcase and left empty frames on the wall. The pale squares of clean paint looked like missing skin. I removed my clothes from the closet and kept the hangers lined up. The empty space looked too wide, like a mouth held open. I checked under the bed again. I checked the lockbox again. I checked the drawer under the sink again, and the hidden key stayed taped where I had found it, waiting like a tooth. I moved the last small things from the bathroom. My razor, my toothbrush, my medicine. I wiped the sink until it shined. I cleaned the mirror and my own face looked wrong in it. My eyes seemed too alert, like I did not blink enough. When I turned off the bathroom light, the dark behind me felt thick, as if it had weight. The air in the apartment turned heavy as the night deepened. The building outside stayed quiet, but the silence inside did not feel empty. It felt watched. Every small sound seemed placed on purpose. The soft click of the heater, the dull pop from a cooling pipe, the faint rattle of the vent. Each noise made me think of someone standing still in a room I could not see. I returned to the living room and stopped in the doorway. The armchair sat at a different angle. It was small, but it was wrong. I knew because I had filmed the room earlier and the chair had faced the window more directly. Now it pointed slightly toward the hall as if it had been turned to watch the front door. My skin tightened. I walked to it and touched the fabric. It felt cool, not warm from a recent body, but the shift still made no sense. I went to the hall closet where the coats hung. The door stood open by an inch. I remembered closing it. I remembered the latch catching. Now it sat ajar like someone had looked inside and left it that way without care. I did not open it right away. I stood there and listened. I heard nothing. I pulled it open fast and checked behind the coats, then above the shelf. Nothing moved. Nothing waited. The missing strip of dust on the top shelf still showed, like a mark left by a hand that did not belong to me. I forced myself to do one more pass through the apartment with my phone camera, slow and steady. I filmed the floors. I filmed the locks. I filmed the windows. I filmed the closet doors and the cabinet doors. I filmed the clean counters and the empty spaces where my things had been. The footage did not comfort me. It only proved how easy it would be for someone to say I imagined everything. I set up a small camera near the bookshelf facing the front door. It was an old indoor security camera I had once used to watch a pet. I placed it low so it captured the lock, the chain, and the entry mat. I plugged it into the wall and waited for the light to turn steady. I connected it to my phone and tested motion alerts. I walked past the door once and my phone buzzed. Motion detected. The notification made my chest tighten, even though it had been my own movement. I turned off most of the lights and sat at the kitchen table with my bag at my feet. I kept the camera app open on my phone. The front door filled the small screen. The image looked flat and quiet, like a scene that could not hurt me. But the longer I watched it, the more it felt like the camera saw more than I did. I heard a faint sound from the hallway outside the apartment. It was not footsteps. It was a soft scrape like something brushed against the door. I held my breath and stared at the live feed. The doorknob stayed still. The chain stayed still. Then my phone buzzed again on the table, sharp and sudden. Motion detected at front door. I was still inside. On the camera screen, the lock area shifted slightly, as if someone had leaned close to it. A second later, a key slid into the lock, slow and certain, and the metal made a quiet click that sounded like it came from inside my own skull. I did not rush to the door. I stayed in the dark kitchen with the table between me and the entry, and I watched the camera feed. The key turned with a slow grind, like the lock wanted to resist but could not. The latch pulled back. The door opened inward without a shake. Whoever held the key acted like he belonged here. Mark stepped in first. He did not carry a bag. He did not look around like a thief. He closed the door behind him with care and listened, head tilted, like he waited for me to speak. Then he smiled to himself and walked deeper into my home, quiet and sure. His shoes made small sounds on the floor that felt too loud in my chest. He held his phone up and started taking pictures. He photographed the living room from the corners. He photographed the windows. He photographed the wall where my photos had been, the pale squares like wounds. He moved slowly like he measured the air. The camera on my shelf saw him clearly, and I saw the focus in his face. This was not anger. This was planning. He pulled a small tape measure from his pocket. He measured the doorway width. He measured the space by the couch. He measured the wall near the TV stand. He spoke softly to himself as he typed numbers into his phone. He said the words like he already owned the place. He said the couch should go. He said the chair needed to face the door. He said it mattered where people stood when they talked. Then he laughed under his breath and spoke louder, aimed at his phone like he recorded a note. He said it was perfect. He said she had picked well. He said the building had cameras in the hall, which meant their story would have support. He said my move out would look like a sudden break, like a man who snapped. I felt cold spread through my arms. I kept watching and kept recording from my side too, my phone held close to my chest. I did not move. If I moved, the floor would speak for me. Mark walked to the kitchen and opened the junk drawer like he knew it. He lifted it and felt under it with 2 fingers. The strip of tape I had peeled earlier sat loose, and the glue shined faintly. He froze for a second, then smiled again. He did not look scared. He looked pleased, like a test had passed. He spoke again, low and clear, and my camera caught it. He said the spare key was still there. He said good. He said she could say I had hidden it because I was paranoid. He said she could say I checked the locks too much. He said she could say I accused her of cheating for no reason. He said people always believe the calm one. He walked to the bedroom door and stopped. He did not go in. He listened, and my heart pressed hard against my ribs. He called my name once, soft, like he wanted to hear me answer. I stayed silent. The apartment smelled like dust and clean soap, and my lungs felt too loud. Mark stepped back to the entry and spoke like he gave instructions to someone who was not here. He said when she returned, she would cry first. He said she would show messages and say I had scared her. He said she would tell the landlord I had been unstable and that she feared for her safety. He said she would ask for an emergency lock change. He said if I showed up angry, it would help them. He said all they needed was one moment on camera. He left as carefully as he came. The door closed with a soft click. The lock turned again, smooth and practiced. When the hallway light line vanished, I finally let air out of my lungs, slow and shaking. I replayed the clip and listened again. His words did not sound like a fight that happened by chance. They sounded like a plan built over weeks, with dates and roles and a story ready to tell. I understood then what I was to them. I was not a boyfriend. I was a problem to remove. I picked up my bag and my last box and made a choice that felt like a hard door closing in my mind. I would not wait for her return. I would move out early, before they could corner me, before they could catch a reaction on any camera but mine. I would leave the apartment spotless, leave the camera running, leave copies of my evidence with the landlord, and leave no room for their story to breathe. As I lifted the box, my phone buzzed again on the table. Motion detected at front door. Morning light made the apartment look normal, which felt like another lie. I kept the camera in place and saved the night footage to 2 drives before I touched anything else. Then I opened the blinds all the way, so no one could claim I hid in darkness. I wanted clean sight lines. I wanted a clean record. The movers arrived at 9. 2 men with a dolly and clipboards. I had chosen a company that did written inventory and timestamps. I asked them to keep their body cameras on if they had them. They did not, but they wrote everything down without complaint. I filmed their arrival at my door and their faces when they said their names. I filmed the time on my phone and the building hallway camera sign on the wall. I moved with purpose. My boxes went first. My suitcase, my laptop bag, my lockbox. I did not let anyone touch her things. I did not want fingerprints on what she might later claim was damaged. I taped my own boxes and marked them. I kept every receipt in a folder and photographed each one as soon as it printed. When my personal items were gone, the apartment felt hollow. That hollow did not bring relief. It made every sound sharper. I walked through each room one last time and filmed it again, slow and steady. No holes in the walls, no broken shelves, no stains on the carpet, no missing appliances, just an emptied space that still smelled like her shampoo. Then I gathered her belongings without anger. I treated them like evidence that had to stay intact. I carried her shoes from the closet and lined them up. I took her coats and folded them. I took her makeup bag, her hair tools, her spare chargers. I did not open her private notebooks. I did not look through her jewelry box. I only moved what was already in shared space. I stacked everything in the center of the living room on a clean sheet I spread on the floor. Her things formed a careful pile, like an exhibit in a room where someone had died. Nothing was broken. Nothing was thrown away. It was only rearranged, placed where it could be seen in one glance. If she claimed I stole, the camera would show I did not. If she claimed I destroyed, the camera would show I did not. I found the junk drawer key again and left it on top of her pile, taped to a note card that only said found under drawer. I did not accuse. I did not explain. I let the object speak for itself. At noon I met the landlord in the hallway. I did not invite him inside at first. I asked him to stand where the building camera could see us. I handed him a printed letter stating I moved out voluntarily, that I withdrew consent for any changes using my name, and that any claims about damage should be compared to my time-stamped videos. He read it with a tight mouth. He asked where my girlfriend was. I said she was traveling. He stepped inside with me and looked around. His eyes moved from the empty walls to the pile in the center. I watched his face change when he saw the key on top. He did not ask about it. He only asked if I had taken my key. I told him I returned it. I placed my key in his hand. I filmed it. I asked him to sign a short receipt that confirmed the date and time he took it. He signed. He seemed uneasy, like he finally understood he had been pulled into something. I asked him to change the locks anyway, not for me, for the unit. I said I no longer lived there and there had been an unauthorized spare key. He agreed without argument. After he left, I sat on the bare floor and used my phone to change every account still in my name. Utilities canceled or transferred. Insurance updated. Address changes submitted. Shared subscriptions removed. I turned off our shared location entirely and deleted the app. I kept copies of everything. Confirmation numbers, emails, screenshots, a paper trail that could not be talked away. Before I walked out, I checked the camera one more time. It pointed at the door in the living room pile like a silent witness. I left it plugged in, connected to my account, hidden behind books. I wanted the next entry recorded too. I closed the door and did not look back. The hallway felt colder than usual. In the elevator, my phone vibrated with a notification from her airline app, the one still synced from months ago. Flight landed. A minute later, a text arrived from her. It was one word. Open. Her words sat on my screen like a command she expected me to obey. I did not answer. I opened my camera app feed instead. The view inside the apartment showed the living room pile in the center and the front door in the frame. The lock area stayed still for a few seconds, then the knob moved, hard and fast. She rattled it as if the door had betrayed her. My phone started ringing. Her name flashed. I let it ring out. She called again. Then again. Each call came closer together, like she pressed a button over and over until reality changed. I watched the camera feed as she moved in and out of view, packing. At one point she leaned close to the door, and I heard her voice through the camera microphone, thin and sharp. She said my name. She said it in a way I had never heard. Not soft, not sweet. She sounded like she spoke to a stranger who had stolen from her. Another figure entered the frame behind her, Mark. He stood back with his arms crossed, looking down the hallway, checking for the landlord or a neighbor. He tried the handle once, slower than her, like he expected the old spare key to work. It did not. He pulled his keyring out anyway and tested 2 keys. He leaned in, turned one, and stopped when it refused. His shoulders stiffened. He tried again, harder. Still nothing. Her phone calls switched to voice messages. The notifications stacked on my screen. Then the texts changed tone. Where are you? Answer me. What did you do? This is not funny. She sent a longer message about her family trip as if she could rewrite time. She said she had come back early because she missed me. She said she worried something happened to me. She wrote it like a story for someone else to read later. On the camera, she stepped back from the door and looked at the hallway camera sign. Her face tightened. She seemed to remember she had planned to use that camera, not be used by it. She turned and spoke to Mark. I could not hear the words clearly, but I saw his jaw work, his mouth thin, his eyes moving like he counted exits. Then her fear appeared in small pieces. She opened her purse and dug through it fast. She patted her pockets. She pulled out her phone and stared at it like it had lied to her. She tried the door again, then hit it once with her palm. The sound traveled through the camera mic and made me flinch, even though I was not there. She walked down the hall and returned with someone. A neighbor, a woman from 2 doors down. The woman looked between her and the door, cautious. My girlfriend spoke quickly and pointed at the lock as if she owned it. The neighbor shook her head and stepped away. My girlfriend's hands started to tremble. She turned and made a call, and I saw her mouth form the word landlord. Minutes later, the landlord arrived, face tight. He stood in the hall and listened. He raised his hands as if to calm her. Mark tried to cut in. The landlord held up a paper, my paper. He pointed to it, then pointed to the lock. He spoke and nodded toward the building camera sign. My girlfriend's face drained. She looked at the door again, then at Mark, and for the first time he looked uncertain. She tried to push past the landlord toward the lock. He stepped in front of her. She argued. Mark raised his voice. The landlord shook his head and pointed down the hall, directing them away from the unit. My girlfriend jerked back as if the hallway itself had turned against her. My phone buzzed again. Another text. "If you do not open the door right now, I will call the police." I waited until the camera showed them still in the hallway, still looking at the door. Then I sent one message, short and calm. I said I had moved out. I said I returned my key to the landlord on video. I said the locks had been changed due to an unauthorized spare key. I attached screenshots of her location, showing she was supposedly on the highway while she sat in the restaurant. I attached a still frame of her smiling with Mark. I attached the saved draft email asking to remove me from the lease with my name misspelled. I wrote that any further contact should go through email. A few seconds passed. On the camera, she read her phone. Her mouth opened and no sound came out. Mark stepped close and snatched her phone for a moment, scanning. His face changed as he read. Not anger first. Calculation. Then a fast, tight fear, like a trap, had snapped shut on his hand. She looked down the hall again as if someone else might appear to fix it. No one did. She pounded once more on the door, weaker this time. The landlord said something firm and pointed away again. She backed up, shaking her head. Mark leaned in to whisper, but she pulled away from him like he burned her. My phone stayed silent after that. The calls stopped. The messages stopped. I turned off the live feed and locked my screen. I walked to my car with my receipts in my bag and my evidence saved in 3 places. The air outside felt cold and clean. I did not look over my shoulder, because there was nothing behind me that could reach me now. Every door she expected to open had stayed locked, and I knew she was still standing in that hallway, staring at a place that no longer belonged to her.